After more than 18 years behind bars, the men known as the West Memphis Three find that freedom has a bitter taste.
This was not justice. In the beginning, we told nothing but the truth that we were innocent, and they sent us to prison for the rest of our lives for it. And then we had to come here, and the only thing that the state would do for us was to say, hey, we'll let you go, only if you admit guilt. And that's not justice, no matter how you look at it.
In a complicated deal, Jesse Miskelly Jr., Damian Eccles, and Jason Baldwin get out of prison to proclaim their innocence, but only after admitting the prosecution has evidence that could convict them. The West Memphis Three go free, but not free of the word murderer.
It's not perfect. It's not perfect by any means, but at least it brings closure to some areas and some aspects. You know, we can still bring up new evidence. We can still continue the investigations we've been doing. We can still try to clear our names. The only difference is now we can do it from the outside instead of having to sit in prison and do it.
And after their entire young adult lives spent in prison, what next? They have the support of celebrities like Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder, who was inside the courtroom when they were set free. They also have the relentless hatred of some of the families of the murdered children. In this outburst, a father yells to the judge he is opening a Pandora's box.
I don't think it'll make the pain go away to the victim families. I don't think it'll make the pain go away to the defendant families. I don't think it will take away a minute of the 18 years that these three young men served in the Arkansas Department of Corrections.
Prosecutors say the case is closed. They have their killers and their guilty pleas. But others, including the father of one of the murdered boys, say they still want answers.
I've been on their side, and I've been fighting for them hard since 2007 when I realized I was wrong, and I had to make many amends to people. But I'm still standing and fighting for justice because they're innocent. They did not kill my son.
The West Memphis Three, saved from a lifetime behind bars, now facing a lifetime of questions. David Mattingly, CNN, Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Welcome back to Operation Evil. This is episode 48, West Memphis Boogeyman Part 3. It's the final part. I'm your host, Nyoka.
I'm Rachel.
We are picking up right where we left off, and Rachel's here to take it away.
That clip you just heard was from August 19th, 2011. That was, of course, the day that Damian, Jesse, and Jason left prison. It was part of the agreement that the day that they entered the plea, that they were released that day. Like, no more time served. Like, they were out.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that time enough for something you didn't do?
Yeah, really.
But during that 18 years, like, that they were in prison, this is what we came to know. And we're just going to kind of do like a, I don't know, like a recap or just like a little rundown.
We're going to tie a pretty little bow on a couple things.
Seal the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that two of the defense witnesses recanted their testimony. One of them was Michael Carson. And remember, he was the one that testified that Jason confessed to him in the juvenile detention center. He came out later and said that he was on drugs, he was facing time, and that he really didn't even know what he was saying. He just made it all up.
He apologized on one of the documentaries.
Yes, like publicly to Jason.
Yeah.
Now, the other person, which I totally forgot to mention in the last episode, is Vicky, A's mother. Now, remember, Vicky is the one that she played detective, and her son was the great storyteller.
Oh, yeah.
He, like, every time he told a story, it would change. He would say that he saw Damian and Jesse in the woods, and then they had these guns and they were trying to save their friend, and just all these crazy stories.
Yep.
So Vicky, years later, like in 2004, she came forward and recanted her testimony. And she said it was because she was just a big liar.
Interesting.
She just made it all up. Now, what's interesting too, though, is that like it was said that she's the one that it was her idea to play detective, to set Damien up with all this, like bring him over to her house and have all this facade that she was into devil worshiping and all that stuff. But according to according to Vicky, it was Jerry Driver's idea. It was the detective's idea. They wanted her to do that. So it's some back and forth there.
He said, she said, all that good stuff. Yeah, I'm surprised that she admitted that she lied at all.
Well, and she did get,
I mean, it was years later,
what do you call that? Like where you get immunity.
She did?
Yeah, because I think she went to the defense, like for Damien, Jesse, and Jason. I think that's why.
Okay.
So we also know that animals mutilated the bodies. It was height of turtle season, so it wasn't sexual mutilation. It was turtles eating the bodies.
Yeah, and didn't they have like so much turtles in this one part where they called it like Turtle Hill or something like that?
Yeah.
It sounds like their case is falling apart. People are recanting. Found out turtles are the ones.
And they have like, when you look at the photographs of like the turtles,
they're
biting.
snapping turtles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're huge turtles. What were they called? Like a dragon turtle or something?
I think they were just called snapping turtles. Like they have long tails. They're just huge.
Yeah.
And in one of the documentaries I watched where the guy who handles these snapping turtles let a big snapping turtle bite into his arm or hand or something, and it left the same exact mark on him as it did the bodies for comparison.
Yeah, like they put the photos side by side. And we also have a profile of the killer. So John Douglas said that this could be a personal cause homicide. Maybe the killer was more familiar with one of the victims more than he was the others, and that he or she has been interviewed by police by now. The act of submerging the bicycles underwater was unnecessary, like if it were a stranger to do that, and the murder was not planned. Whoever did it, they lost control. The boys had skull fractures and brain injuries, so like they just got mad and just like lost control.
I think of Criminal Minds when they're profiling the case they're working on.
And there's that show, which the show is based off of him. It's on Netflix. It's called Mindhunter.
Oh, I haven't watched that, but I've heard so many good things about that one.
Like the stories are fictional, like of course for drama reasons, but like the whole thing in there about like Ed Kemper, like some of that stuff and some of the other, all that is like true. I guess like it kind of showcases how they get the criminal forensic part of it, the profiling part, like gets started.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I'll have to watch that one. Yeah,
it's so good. Waiting for another season.
How many seasons are there?
I think there's only 2.
Oh, okay.
They also found out that, or we know now that the boys were alive when they went into the water.
Did not know that.
I guess in their lungs and stuff, they inhaled water and they could tell that. John Douglas also mentioned that after 18 years, because this person has had time to think about their answers, that it would be very tough to get a confession from that person.
Well, yes, so much time has went by, I guess it would.
Yeah. And we know that there are 2 pieces of hair that were found at the scene. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
While the West Memphis 3 were still in prison, their team took a look at the fathers, and that team consisted of their lawyers, Lori Davis, Damien's girlfriend, and then also Fran and Peter Walsh, just like a team of people, like just ordinary people. But the one thing they did have that a lot of us don't have, or a lot of the family didn't have, was money. So they were able to obtain a lot of things that maybe wouldn't have been possible because of funds, the lack of funds.
They had a big support group behind them, for sure.
So John Mark Byers, Christopher's father, had a lot of circumstantial factors going on too. He had hair and blood samples taken early in the investigation, but his DNA was not found at the scene. And the circumstantial evidence we kind of covered in the last episode, but
Right.
it was, I mean, it's kind of like what was done to him was kind of like what was done to Damien, Jesse, and Jason.
It's a pattern in this case.
Right. So that brings us to Terry Hobbs. Terry Hobbs is the stepfather of Stevie Branch. And let me also mention that Michael Moore's father, Todd, he was out of town at the time of the murder. So he wasn't even a factor or a consideration. He was just kind of like rolled out. So a piece of that hair, a hair that was found in the shoelace, like in a knot of a shoelace that they had used to tie one of the boys together, like his arms.
I think it was found in Michael Moore's shoelace.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that hair that was found in that knot, it matched Terry Hobbs. Now they did talk about like secondary transfer. And then there was also another hair that was found on a tree that belonged to Harry Toey Hobbs, that belonged to Toey Hobbs's friend, David Jacoby. In 2017, February of 2017, Rachel Geiser.
2007.
Oh, sorry, 2007. Thanks, Yo.
You're welcome.
Clarify that. So Rachel Geiser, a private investigator, which was hired through the team, she goes to Terry Hobbs's home, and he's like, "Oh, I've been expecting you. I've been waiting for you." And she is wanting to get some DNA. And of course, she asks him straight out, like, if she can have a sample. And he says no. So she finds a cigarette butt and she snatches it. Now, it comes back as a match. And she takes it to the West Memphis Police Department. But, they can't use it in court because it was obtained, in quotations, illegally.
Right.
It wouldn't hold up in court.
But at
So-
least they can compare.
Right. There's some similarities.
Yes.
They did do, the police, they did do an investigation. There is a lengthy one that you can find on YouTube if you want to watch it. So, like in sometime between 2007 and like 2009, Terry Hobbs, he files a lawsuit against Natalie Maines. She's the lead singer of Dixie Chicks, for defamation. So there's a
Disposition, yeah.
that is held from July to August of 2009. And Natalie's lawyers are like, wow, this is a great opportunity to ask some questions about pertaining to the case, which eventually he did lose the suit. But we're going to play a quick clip here talking about the DNA and Terry Hobbs.
It's going to kind of show you how awkward he is, too.
Very like...
Or just the way he answers things. And this is just a snippet.
His demeanor and whatnot.
Yeah, we'll play it right now.
Well, did you contact them? Did you contact the media and try to get your side of the story out?
I did at one point.
When was that?
After all this stuff was going on.
What stuff you talking about?
They had my DNA supposedly out there, and people were looking at me like I was a suspect. That's when I wanted my story out there.
And this was before you were interviewed by the police, right? Because the police were
I'm
responding
not
to all...
sure about that.
The police were responding to all the questions and public inquiry about whether or not it was your DNA found in the ligature of that little boy, right?
I'm not sure. The police had never told me that was my DNA.
Well, didn't the police in some of the press say that that it was your DNA, but that it got there by what do they call transfer? Didn't the police
accept that?
Didn't the police say that?
Objection, that's a hearsay statement.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You don't recall the police ever saying that it was your DNA, but it got there via innocent transfer?
I do recall the police saying that Mr. Hobbs was not a suspect in 93, and he's not one in 07.
All right. So in 2002, Pam had left Terry, and they divorced in 2004. She said that Terry would tell her to move on, and they would fight about it. He would be like jealous of Stevie, of like their time together. Pam always thought that Terry was out searching the night that Stevie went missing, but she started having some doubts after that DNA result. Like there was, she found out about the match. And after she also heard that Terry was actually at David Jacoby's house with their daughter, Amanda.
And she had no idea.
Right. Like all this time, like he never told her that. And it's weird too, because like she said that Terry never told her about Stevie missing until he picked her up from work, which would have been like what, like 9:15 or 9:30, something like that at night. And he took her to work at like 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock. Now they did look, because what was it? Stevie was supposed to be home by 4:30. Pam had to be at work at 5, so they did go looking for him. They thought, well, you know, Pam's just got to go to work, and then he said that he continued to look after he dropped her off. But he went to David Jacoby's house. David Jacoby said they played guitar for a while, and then there was 2 different times that Terry had left. So there was like 2.5 hours that there was no alibi for Terry.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So kind of 2 different stories there. So when Terry goes to pick up Pam at her job that night, he just goes straight to the payphone. He doesn't say anything. He just goes straight to the payphone to call the police to report Stevie missing. And also, Pam also said that she remembers Terry having on different clothes. So he was wearing different clothes when he picked her up from work. And she found Stevie's pocket knife in one of his toolboxes like years later or sometime later. And Terry said that he took it from him because he was too young to have it. Remember, Stevie was only 8 years old. But from what I remember, Pam said that Stevie carried that with him like every day.
Yeah.
And that, you know, he was responsible to be carrying it.
She thought it was like lost when he...
in the evidence or something. No, Terry claimed he did not have a short temper. And this is kind of showcased in that deposition. But others say differently. During an argument with Pam once, he smacked her. And then a different altercation, he shot Pam's brother, put him in the hospital.
And he giggled about this in his, when he was asked about this.
Yeah, like it was funny.
He like snickered like a girl, like, yeah.
Yeah, like he deserved it. Terry's first wife was a victim of his abuse too. Their neighbor had like intervened because I think he had a child with his first wife. So I remember the neighbor saying that like she could hear a kid crying and she heard like screaming and stuff. He gets mad because this neighbor like intervenes. I guess, you know, she came over to like defend his ex-wife or whatever. And he knew that she called the police or something. So she's in the shower and he somehow enters her apartment and she goes to like get out of the shower and he grabs her on the chest, sexually assaults her. So she calls the police comes and he's just like, that didn't happen. Like she's making it up.
Yeah. And I think
It's creepy.
when she was being interviewed about that, she was so loud about when he grabbed her, like, get out of my house.
Yes.
Get off me. She is probably so loud and consistently saying that it probably scared him away.
Yeah,
Because she was not being quiet.
Right. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to put up with your crap and someone's going to hear. Family members also said that Stevie, well, they didn't also, but family members said that Stevie was scared of Terry and that Terry was mean to him. Stevie's grandmother found him once in a closet, and this would have been Pam's mom. He found him in a closet once because he had an accident in his pants, and he was afraid that he called him Daddy Terry. He was afraid that he would whoop him. Now, when he would whoop him, he would have to hold his arms like above his head. And Terry said the reason why he had him do that was because he didn't want to hit him on the back of the arms or the hands. Now, I mean...
Oh, because of bruises being shown or whatever?
Yeah, or just being hit on the arms or whatnot. I mean, this is still a time when parents did whip their kids.
Yeah.
And then another time... she saw a belt mark on Stevie. The grandma did. According to a cousin, Stevie told her, this would have been a cousin of Stevie, that Terry would come into his room and masturbate in front of him. And then Stevie's sister, she said that she would have dreams or memories. She couldn't tell if it was a dream or if it was a memory. She didn't know what was real. But she had these dreams or whatever that she was being molested by her father.
That's sad. She could have blocked it out or something.
And have flashbacks. Mm-hmm. Or, she was only like 4 when Stevie died, trauma. You just never, it could have been someone else. I don't, you never know.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks before the murder, Stevie asked his mother to leave Terry. And, there's interviews and things of Pam where she's saying, she kind of has doubts. Like, did you see that where she's saying, like, what if this or what if that or what if that? Did I miss something?
Yeah.
And I think that's really sad on her part, too, because I'm jumping ahead, but, like, at this point, she doesn't believe it was the West Memphis 3 that killed her son. But now there's, like, possibly evidence that's saying that her ex-husband killed her son. So she's torn at this point.
Yeah, because, he was really jealous of Stevie.
Right.
He would say that she was spending too much time being a mother than being a wife.
And, if someone's abusive, you think a short temper. Another key point is that Terry had told police that he didn't see the boys that day, but a neighbor saw and heard him speak to the boys about 6:30. They were leaving for church, and she would have been a young girl at the time, like school age with the other boys, like with Stevie and Michael and Christopher. Or actually, she might have been a little older than them. She might have been closer to Christopher's brother's age, Ryan. He might have been like 13 or maybe a little younger. But anyhow, she saw Terry holler at the boys, "Y'all come back down here," I think is what she said.
Yeah.
There's confliction there, too.
Well, all these years passed, too, and she had no idea that the police didn't know this because they didn't bother interviewing neighbors or anything, and Terry never said anything about it.
Right. And for her, she's a child at the time. Like, why would she think to say anything?
This whole case is so irritating because there's so many things that they could have done, and they just didn't.
Yeah.
So many missed opportunities.
When John Douglas, the criminal profiler, interviewed Jacoby, remember Terry's friend?
Mm-hmm.
He described a harsh stepfather. He's describing Terry.
Oh.
And he's identifying with this relationship because it's the same relationship that he had with his stepfather. Like, you get your ass beat basically for nothing. What I took from that was that Jacoby had witnessed Terry being mean to Stevie, maybe a little bit overly mean. But I don't know. That happens all the time too, and that doesn't mean that the stepfather would murder their stepfather. So I don't know. And also, did Terry use David Jacoby as an alibi? Because it seems like he did. Oh, and one other thing that I thought was interesting was that Stevie's aunt, she was living with them at the time.
Yeah.
She said that she saw Terry cleaning, and Terry is he doesn't clean. But she said that she saw him cleaning in Stevie's room that night.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she could smell bleach and stuff like that.
When you're watching, if you do watch these documentaries, everybody looks good for it. I'm telling you. What they did to the West Memphis 3 is what you find yourself judging these other people. Because should I talk about John Mark real quick? Tie him up in a bow?
Yes, go ahead.
Because before Terry was even a person of interest, he was pretty quiet in the beginning of the documentaries and stuff. But John Mark Byers was quite a character. He was very...
very eccentric.
Yes. He went all out in these. You're like, whoa. And you're like, this guy is suspicious.
If it wasn't the West Memphis 3, it's gotta be him.
Yeah, that's what it makes you think. And you're doing the same thing to these people as they did to the West Memphis 3 kids. But I'm just going to give you a little rundown. And this is when I said in the last episode, he didn't help his case on why people thought he was suspicious, a person of interest. And this is why. Okay, so he was the stepdad of Christopher Byers. And Arkansas Times discovered that in 1973 he was arrested at the age of 16 because his parents claimed that he was threatening them with a butcher knife. So we're already off to a rough start in his teenage years. By 1987, he was married and divorced with 2 kids and then remarried again. Then a neighbor called the police when Christopher was 2 years old because John Mark was beating him so badly that she was scared for his life. And she reported this happening multiple times, even when the murders were being investigated.
And that's the first time I've ever heard that.
Yep. In 1987, he was arrested with terroristic threatening because he assaulted his ex-wife with an electric shock device and served 3 years probation. In July of 1992, he was arrested and charged with felony cocaine counts and carrying a weapon. In 1992-1993, he was involved in a Rolex scam. So those watches, he's making all kinds of money. In 1994, he was charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor because he forced 2 teenagers to fight with knives, and it got to the point where one of them was seriously injured. A few months later, in 1994, he was charged with hitting a neighbor's 5-year-old so hard that he left bruises.
Oh, that's when he swatted him with the fly swatter, right?
Yes. Now, his wife, Melissa, she was a heroin addict amongst other drugs. She was charged with putting a gun to a carpet installer's head after he refused to lay the carpet until the floors were clean. And both of them together, after the trials in 1994, they were both arrested for stealing $20,000 in antique items from a neighbor's residence, which you covered in part 2. By 1994, both of them had 12 misdemeanors, and neighbors had restraining orders against them.
My goodness, so this is a year, or the same year that the 3 get convicted.
It gets better. So Melissa's death, we're going to talk about her death, which was in March 29th, 1996. She was found naked and unconscious in their home that evening and pronounced dead at the hospital. The death was undetermined for the cause. State police were investigating her death. A witness said that she was taking pills, the couple was fighting a lot, and it was said that John Mark was cheating on her with this girl named Mandy. And when police came, he was standing outside with his girlfriend, Mandy, and stated that he was worried that he would be accused of smothering her.
That's so odd to say.
It really is. Although her death was undetermined, the medical examiner did say she did have drugs in her system, but it was not enough to kill her. So it was not possible that she OD'd. She had no alcohol or opiates in her system either. They found scars on her wrists indicating, her past struggles and depression and probably the loss of her son.
Right.
John Mark stated that they laid down to take a nap and he woke up to her dead. So after Melissa's death, he got in some more trouble. So in 1997, he got a ton of hot check charges. So you're basically writing checks for money you don't have.
So like a cold check?
Yeah.
I like how they call them hot checks.
Hot checks. In April 1999, he accidentally dialed a wrong number when making a drug deal. It was, out of all people, a state trooper. He met up with him and got arrested. He got an 8-year sentence, but he only served 15 months.
That cracked me up because, you guys, she told me about this, and I'm like, who does that?
Yeah.
Dials a wrong number.
And a state trooper at that. He's like, oh, yeah, man, and where do you live? I can't remember. And one last thing was Melissa's parents. They did say, they claimed that Melissa always had black eyes and bruises from John Mark beating her. So I just wanted to give all these things, his past history, and why this just did not favor him. And it didn't help that, people could look at all his, it's like everybody knew things that was going on, and
Right.
he was suspicious, especially with that kind of history. He was suspicious.
Well, and I mean, the fact that he gives the HBO producers of Paradise Lost a knife and it has blood on it.
I forgot all about that. You talked about that last
Yeah.
episode.
I mean, there's just so many. I guess it is circumstantial again, but
it is. But in the third documentary of Paradise Lost, it was like he was a different person. He was like, they did not kill my son. They did not do this.
But it makes you wonder too, though. Like, he did have a brain tumor while all this is like going on.
Good.
So,
Yes.
Like, is that why he acted crazy? Or maybe he acted crazy because his son died.
Or maybe he's just theatrical.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. You would have to just watch it for yourself and make your own determination.
And
but,
it's the same way with Terry Hobbs.
Yes.
But on a other side of the spectrum. Because it's almost like you got to try to pull things out of Terry Hobbs.
Yeah, he was the quiet one, stayed in the shadows, but he had a horrible history too.
Yeah.
Or just background in general.
Well, and then more suspicious things happen in 2011. Now, this is right after the Damien, Jesse, and Jason. I always like blah, blah, blah. This is like, so they got out and wait a minute, hold on.
They did get out in 2011.
Okay, so yeah, in August they get out. Now in December that same year, a call comes in to that tip line that they had, the westmemphis3.org, that tip line that they set up.
Mm-hmm.
So this person is like, I need someone to call me. This person, Blake Sisk, he said that when he was like 12 or 13, he was at his friend's house. And that friend was Michael Hobbs Jr., which is Terry's nephew.
Okay.
So they were like, they wanted to go downstairs in the basement. I guess like that's where they had their rec room or whatever. So, but they couldn't go down there because Terry and Michael's father, which is Michael Sr., were down there talking. So they overheard Terry crying and saying, I'm sorry for what happened to Michael's dad, so to Michael Sr. Blake tried to report this in 2010, which was before the West Memphis 3 get out of prison, and which also is when they are like trying to get a hearing date to see if they're going to get a new trial. But the officer told him that there was nothing that could be done because there was no recording of Michael Jr. saying those things. Like, it had to be recorded. So I guess they took it as like hearsay.
But which is ironic because everything's been hearsay.
Exactly. The whole trial.
The whole trial is hearsay. The whole conviction was hearsay.
Yes. So how does that make any sense?
They closed this case in their minds from the get-go.
They did. They so did. They were stressed out. There was pressure coming down on them. They were being investigated, and they just had to make this just go away. And they didn't think that the world would know.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God for the two producers.
Yeah, because at that time, trials were not filmed like they are now. It was like one of the first like available trials that you could watch.
Was it the O.J. Simpson? What year was that?
Ooh, that was late 90s, wasn't it?
Because what I remember, that was the first huge trial that everybody watched.
Yes, that was probably on national TV, where this one was a documentary that didn't come out. It wasn't in real time, like the OJ.
And mind you, like we said in the last episode, the documentary was like 3 years after the trial and everything, like all that had happened.
Mm-hmm.
Before I forget too, Barry Sheck, which worked on the OJ trial, he was a part of this. He's part of the Innocence Project. So he was a part of helping the West Memphis 3 get out.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. He played a part too.
Very cool.
He, if you look back at the OJ trials, like he's one of the guys like at the table or whatever.
Oh.
Yeah. He's kind of got like salt pepper looking hair. I don't remember what exactly his part was, but he was a part of it.
Okay.
Now, there was 2 more tips. Another tip came in from Cody Gott. He said that Michael Jr. told him, quote, My uncle killed those kids, my dad told me. He said that Michael Jr. has not been the same since. And a third witness, which he remained like unnamed, claimed that Michael Jr. told him his uncle killed those 3 kids. And there was a statement that was kind of thrown around, the Hobbs family secret. Like that was Michael Jr. would say that to his friends.
Oh, but nobody called these kids back, huh?
Nope. And what's ironic is that these tips, they're coming through. And like I said, they are the same time that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of a new trial. I just find that ironic. So the situation about Terry Hobbs is kind of dropped because the state believes that justice was served. It's a conclusion. Another theory, though, that Jesse's lawyer has, that Nyoka, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So we're going to go back to the DNA a little bit, and I discovered this information from the ID channel did a West Memphis 3 little mini series of 3 episodes or something. But so his name is what? Dan Statham?
Stidham. I say Stidham.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think that's how it's said. I liked him. Yeah.
He became a judge.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the one that stuck by Jesse's side the entire time, never left it, was fighting for him the whole time. So he was being interviewed in this episode, and he said that, he said during the autopsy, the bodies were swabbed, including the penises. A small DNA sample was found. It wasn't enough to get a full genetic profile, but it was enough to rule out the West Memphis 3 and Terry Hobbs. So even though we had DNA before of the hair found in Michael Moore's shoelace matching Terry Hobbs, this, however, did not. And the hair could have been a secondary transfer because the kids were always playing together. It's very possible.
And I think actually David Jacoby, his house was within walking distance.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, so it wouldn't be a rare thing for the hair to be there.
Right. And also Amanda.
Talking about Jacoby's hair being on the tree.
Yes. Now Amanda, which is Terry's daughter,
mm-hmm.
she was talking about this DNA also, and she said that she doesn't believe her father killed those boys based on the hair being there because the boys always played together. They were always around each other, and she just didn't believe that her dad did it based on this hair. So we're going to go back to these swabs, okay? So they got a small DNA profile. It ruled out the West Memphis 3. It ruled out Terry. So Jesse's attorney believes that whoever's profile that is, it's unknown. Whoever it belongs to, though, he believes that's the person that killed these boys. He believes it's a serial killer. He thinks that because of the location where the boys were found, it was literally next to a truck stop, that it could have been a trucker just passing through town, that they didn't know the boys. Now, I know this is completely different from the FBI profile.
But you know what? It could have been a trucker that frequently goes through there.
Yeah, it could have been somebody passing through, didn't know the kids. It was opportunity, but dumped the kids where they did. It sounds like a good theory, but his theory's not being pursued because you got to remember the law enforcement, they have this case closed and they believe they got it right the first time, and nothing further is happening with that as far as any of this DNA goes.
And remember the Bojangles evidence that was lost.
Right. That's what I keep coming back to. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, this bloody man comes in Bojangles. The officer goes through the drive-thru to talk to the manager who calls for help. They lose the blood scrapings off the wall. I mean, this could have been somebody for all we know.
It's really just asinine, isn't it?
It's just so aggravating how this went down. But I found that this DNA, because I didn't see it anywhere else. And the millions of things that I've watched and listened to and whatever, I didn't see this anywhere else. So I wanted to bring it up. It was, the episode was from 2020, the year, not the show.
And I don't remember
Yeah.
reading it unless I just looked totally over it in Mara Leverett's book.
Maybe they didn't go much into it because it wasn't enough of a sample to make a complete profile. It was just enough to rule out those people. But you would think they would bring that up because of Terry Hobbs.
It's just, gosh, the perfect word for this case is just frustrating because as soon as you get to one point, then it takes you to another point.
Yeah, you feel like you know who looks good for it, and they don't. It's the next person, and then it's the next person, and then you don't know.
And then you have these people that are supposed to be trained for it, but then you've got the lawyers and just average Joes figuring it out. Like,
Right. Because when I heard initially about the hair, I was like, oh, I bet that's something right there. But really, your hair could be found in my shoelace. It doesn't mean I killed you. It means that we've been together enough
Right.
to have that secondary transfer.
I mean, Michael could have had his shoe could have been untied, and Terry could have bent down to tie his shoe for him, and it could have fell out of his head or something.
Yeah. Or we could be wrong and he could have done it. Who knows? I mean, we don't know at this point, but it's just aggravating. The whole thing's aggravating.
Very frustrating. So we're just going to kind of talk about Damien, Jason, and Jesse, like, their lives now. So, like, they're out of prison.
Yay.
Damien, of course, they all live separate lives. Now, I believe Damien and Jason, they still kind of talk here and there, but it's not like...
They're not like best friends like they were. And
Right. In 2017, Jesse was arrested at a traffic stop for driving without a license.
Jesse,
and
come
insurance.
on.
Poor Jesse.
Silly guy.
Now, from what I could find, he only spent the weekend in jail. They had, like, made a, like, $480 bond or something. And, I mean, they don't have any money.
Yeah.
There was, some of the lawyers were like, oh, it's because of who he is. But then other people were like, well, that is a normal thing to do, to arrest someone for no license and all that. But other than that, he's just working. I believe he was doing like roofing jobs and working on vehicles with his father. And he just lives a quiet life. He's not really in the limelight.
And he still lives in West Memphis.
Now, Jason, he started a nonprofit organization in Austin, Texas called Proclaim Justice. And it's dedicated to overturning wrongful convictions. In 2017, Mara Leverett wrote a book about Jason and his life in prison. And we have the link to that book
In the show notes.
Yeah, in the show notes.
Yep.
Jason later said that he always thought that he would be freed by being exonerated or by a not guilty verdict, like for a retrial, and that signing the Alford plea opened his eyes to what was happening in the judicial system. And I read somewhere else that he said that he regretted signing that plea because I guess other people he has helped or he has like come across were able to get a not guilty verdict by doing a retrial. But I mean, I kind of agree with the others that I don't know. It was probably in best interest for him to just do the
Can I
plea.
add something to this?
Yeah, go for it.
So in that same ID channel special that they did on it, they were interviewing Jason, and well, one, I like how he says that he's doing the Proclaim Justice because he's like helping pay it forward.
Yeah,
because people fought for them this whole time. So that
he's
that was
he's
so nice.
sweet too.
He
Like,
is.
He's still the same Jason that you see in the documentary.
Oh yeah, absolutely, just with a beard in this one. But he did say that. Where was I going with this? Where were you at?
Oh, about the
about signing or agreeing to
the
that plea. He was concerned though that if he didn't, that they would be set to find 12 jurors that would absolutely convict them no matter what. Like because I think prosecutors get to pick the jurors. So they would. That's a big risk that they would have taken.
Well, and I think it was Dan Stidham said that there was something else that how do you say that? I guess like the prosecutors, they run in that state, they run the courtroom more or less.
There you go. And he was worried that they would put 12 jurors that was set against them and hated them and believed it was them. It was just such a big risk. Plus, in that one, when they did it live or whatever, took the plea, he was worried for Damien's life too. So,
when they were in court the day of the...
Yeah, so I just want to throw that in.
Yeah, because it took some work for them to really talk him into doing it. Because, even when he was a kid, he said that he was taught not to lie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that the three of them have in common, is that
they're truthful.
Yeah, they were taught by their parents not to lie, and that's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Damien, he is an artist, and he's a writer, and he's a teacher of what's called high magic. And magic is spelled Magick. He said that he wanted to spell it that way to differentiate, like street magic. So it's something that teaches spiritual practices and philosophy. It's kind of like Buddhism or Hinduism, which, in prison, that's what saved his life. Him and Lori, I think we mentioned in the last episode that they had a Buddhist ceremony for their wedding. He did and still does make appearances in the media to talk about the case, because not only does he want to be exonerated and for the other two too, but he also wants to find the real killer. I mean, of course that's going to exonerate him, but he wants to find justice for the little boys as well. He was kind of thrown into this, but it's more or less a goal for him, I guess, I mean, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I don't think he lives in West Memphis either. I want to throw that out there. I think he left there.
The last I heard, he had went to New York, and then him and Lori had moved to Salem, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And they travel a lot. So he travels a lot doing workshops and things like that. And I think he does photography.
It wouldn't surprise me. He's a very
he does everything.
Creative person.
Mm-hmm.
And they said he was a movie producer as well in the ID channel. Now, I don't know what movie he's produced or whatever, but they mentioned that. I don't know.
And more than one book. He wrote the book when he was in prison. He started writing it, and it ends with him still in prison. And then there's another one that is love letters between him and Lori. And then there's some books about high magic.
And he has a YouTube and a Patreon and all that good stuff too.
Yeah, and him and Jason are constantly, well, I don't want to say constantly, but you can find them on Twitter. And then we're going to play a clip here where Damien, for the first time, it was 5 years after he got out, it's 2016 or so, that he went back to Arkansas for a rally. And so we're going to play that clip now.
Damien, you nervous?
Very,
You're down.
very.
Still got problems with COVID like that, I'm sure.
Feels like my heart's about to beat out of my chest right now.
I'll catch
How are you feeling?
Scared to death right now, honestly. And I could not have done this without the people that are here with me. It would have been too hard. For 2 weeks, whenever they reached out to me and asked if I would come speak, my first thought was no, I can't do this. I can't go back. I can't do this. And then it was one of those things where I realized I've got to do this. I can't go through the rest of my life knowing I didn't raise a hand to try to help people. I didn't raise a hand to try to help people who were dying. But even then I would go back and forth. I would say, okay, we're going to do this. But then I would wake up in the night having another panic attack. And I would tell Lori, I can't go back. And I would go back and forth like that over and over until Johnny said he would come, until Joe said he would come. And then I thought, okay, well, I've got enough support around me. I've got enough family around me that I can go and do this. But there's still a lot of fear. There is an incredible amount of fear for me for being back in the state, and I don't want to fear that. That was another reason I wanted to come back, is maybe hopefully this will allow me to get over some of the fear that sort of, this is where I was born. And when this happened to me, it sort of stole home from me. It took my home away from me. So maybe hopefully this will bring
some sense of closure and resolve for that, and I won't feel the sense of fear and trauma when I think of Arkansas that I do now.
You could just hear
his nerves.
Yes.
That was the first time he's been there since, I guess, he was released.
Right. It had been like 5 years, I think they said. So they were released in 2011. And I'm going to read this quote that he had tweeted on Twitter. Quote, 10 years ago, I had no choice but to take an Alford plea to get off death row. I needed to fight for my innocence and that of Jesse and Jason outside of the prison walls, and that is why I sought to test the evidence in the case to exonerate us and lead to the real killer or killers. Once we made inquiries to the West Memphis police to turn over the evidence in the case for advanced testing, the essence disappeared. We will not give up until we find whatever evidence exists. We will find out who destroyed the evidence and why the legal authorities lied. We want a hearing to get to the bottom of this. End quote.
I like that.
Everything he writes is just, there's this one quote that I think he ends in his book, and it says something about, I should have wrote it down, something about, in the end, ignorance ends in hate, or something like that. And it's so simple, but so true, and something to kind of live by. In 2020, Damien reached out to Scott Ellington. Now remember, he's the prosecutor who accepted the Alford plea. He did that press release, where he was like, I'm not confident, but he's like, we entered the plea today to satisfy both the defense and the prosecution, blah, 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 blah. So Damien reached out to him about retesting evidence. Now, this newer technology that Damien was talking about in the quote, it's called an MVAC, and it's more accurate than the wet swab that was used in prior testing, which I think is where they swab something, cut it, and then put it in that,
like a solution or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then run it through that thing and test it. So this is more advanced. Ellington was working with Damien's lawyer to have all the evidence, or to have the evidence sent to a private lab in California. But Ellington was elected as a circuit judge, so a new prosecutor came in, Keith Cressman. He's the one that claimed that evidence was lost and that it may have been destroyed in a fire 15 years ago. So Damien filed an open records request in 2021. I think it was November maybe of 2021 or something like that. And with open record request in Arkansas, you've got 3 days to respond. So Damien never got a response, so he filed a complaint to the county. So finally, the evidence was received. And when they got all of the evidence, Damien's team of lawyers, they were able to go to the West Memphis department into this room and examine everything. And everything was intact, well organized, and cataloged.
See, that looks horrible on the department, too, because one, you didn't follow your open records laws and respond back in the appropriate amount of time, and two, you had the records all along, you just did not want to provide them.
Yeah, so you lied. I remember reading in, too, that, a past, while they're still in prison, I think it was a reporter, had went to the West Memphis Police Department, and it might have been when Detective Allen became the chief. Somebody came there to look at the evidence, and he was like, oh, she's here to look at the garbage. Who says that?
Wow.
There's a lot of who said that around here. So in January of this year, 2022, Damien and his lawyers filed a petition to have the DNA tested, the hair that was found in one of the ligatures. And then in February, prosecutor Cressman denied the request due to little evidence that MVAC is a scientifically sound method. The prosecutor said that the MVAC method would alter the DNA, thus would be in violation of the court's requirement to permanently preserve physical evidence in violent offense cases. Additionally, Cressman, or Tressman, however you want to say his name, said that the MVAC raises due process concerns as 2 additional defendants were convicted in the case, but they have not joined Eccles' request. It sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, like it always is. And He also added that the testing does not meet requirements under Arkansas Act 1788 of 2001. I think this act, I didn't look up to see what it is, but do you remember when they were in prison and a new law had came into effect that if new evidence had came out that they were allowed to test the DNA?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's what he's talking about. So the petition that was filed, so he said that Damien filed the petition in the wrong county, and that Damien was no longer a state prisoner, and that the petition was filed more than 3 years after his conviction. Well, duh.
Huh. Okay.
So the county, which was Craighead, was indeed the correct county. So Damien was convicted in Crittenden County, but the conviction was vacated because the Alford plea was accepted in Craighead County. So that's where Damien was supposed to go to file the open records request. So it was right. And then updated technology was considered in the act. It was not excluded. Like, it was, I guess, more or less like written into the act that, like, if updated technology arises, then you're allowed. So by law, yes, like this prosecutor is in the wrong. And so now we just wait. Damien will be returning to Arkansas with his lawyers, and the hearing is set for June 23rd.
Whoa, that's not that far away.
No, so
next month.
We'll do a quick little update once we get
hear
the news. Yeah. I feel like that they're going to just like they did with the hearing to try to get him out, they're going to keep pushing it.
Yeah, it does make you wonder, will this case ever be truly solved? Will anything come of it? I'm just glad they're out living a life.
Same.
Yeah. And is that all you have?
That's it.
That concludes the West Memphis Boogeyman. And we still don't know who the boogeyman or man is.
Or boogie woman.
Or boogie woman. I doubt.
And also, side note, we wanted to name this episode West Memphis Boogeyman because in the first episode of the documentary, or I'm sorry, the first part of the documentary, Damien at the very end, he refers to himself as a West Memphis Boogeyman.
Yeah.
And then in the second one, he's like, I made that comment because to make light of the situation. I mean,
he was a kid.
Yes.
He was a kid.
But in all truth, it is a boogeyman that did this.
Mm-hmm.
So
what a crazy 3 weeks it has been with this. She's been wanting to cover this since we've started the podcast. So finally, does it feel good to get it done?
And I've had this in my head since I was like in my 20s, early 20s or so. So I don't know, they were in prison for 18 years. So, and I didn't learn about the case until, years after the documentary had aired. I didn't see it right when it came out in 1996. Thanks for getting me started with this. And
I'm glad you covered it.
I love it.
It was such a good, interesting, sad, tragic story all at the same time. If you're craving more Operation Evil, check out our Patreon for bonus episodes. We'll be putting out our bonus episode for the month of this month, May, next week. So keep a lookout for that. And I think that covers it, everyone. Thank you for your patience, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Goodbye.
Bye.